In the heart of the old forest, where the trees danced with the wind and the rivers laughed like children, lived many animals, big and small, slow and fast, proud and humble. Tortoise was one of them. He was not the fastest, not the strongest, not even the most liked, but he had something most others didn't: a sharp mind and a sweet tongue. His shell was small and smooth then, with no cracks or chips. His voice was gentle, and when he spoke, animals listened, even if they didn't trust him much. Every morning, the tortoise would crawl slowly past the anthills, past the tall grass, and greet the birds that sang above. And every afternoon, he would rest under the wide shade of the iroko tree, dreaming of a day when all the animals would clap for him, praise him, respect him. But in that same forest lived the elephant. Elephant was big, too big to ignore. His footsteps shook the ground, his tusks curved like the crescent moon, and his voice deep and strong like thunder before rain. He was respected, not just for his strength, but for his kindness. When the antelope was sick, Elephant brought herbs. When the stream dried, he dug a new path with his heavy feet. And when two animals fought, they went to Elephant for peace. Tortoise watched all of this, and he smiled, but not with joy. "Elephant, elephant," he muttered one evening as he looked up at the stars. "You are big today, but even the tallest tree can fall. One day they will clap for me too." The wind did not answer, but far away the sound of a drum echoed through the trees. 1, 2, 3 slow beats. It was a signal. The king of the forest, Old Lion, wise and gray, had called for a great meeting. The next morning, the whole forest was alive with movement. Birds flew low, whispering the news from branch to branch. Monkeys leapt from tree to tree, chattering in excitement. Even the slow animals, snail, millipede, chameleon, were trying their best to reach the center of the forest. The king had called. And when the king of the forest calls, you go. Under the mighty baobab tree, the animals gathered. It was the oldest tree in the forest. Its roots deep in the earth, its bark thick like elephant skin, its branches spread wide like a grandmother's arms. Tortoise arrived last. He had taken his time, pretending not to be interested, but his eyes watched everything. Lion stood on a high rock in front of the crowd. His mane was no longer golden. It had turned gray with wisdom and age. His eyes, half closed, scanned the gathering. He spoke slowly. "My children, the rains have returned. The rivers are full. The land is soft again. To thank the spirits, we shall hold the feast of peace." A cheer rose from the animals. Monkeys clapped, antelopes kicked their legs in joy, parrots screamed in the air. Each clan will bring a gift to the feast: a song, a story, a fruit, a dance, anything. This is a time for sharing, for joy, for oneness. Elephant stepped forward and bowed. "I will bring 20 baskets of palm fruit, and I will carry water for those who cannot fetch." Cheers again. Tortoise blinked slowly. He had nothing to bring. No fruit, no song, no dance. He had not even shared food with his neighbor in moons. He rubbed his chin. Then he smiled. That kind of smile that only the clever and sometimes wicked know how to wear. "Your Majesty," he said, stepping forward, "I will bring a tale, a story no one has ever heard, One that will make even the trees dance." There was silence. The animals looked at him, unsure whether to laugh or clap. But Lion nodded slowly. "Then we shall listen." After the meeting, Elephant turned to Tortoise. "That was brave. A tale better than food? You better make it sweet." Tortoise chuckled. "Don't worry, Brother Elephant. This story will stay in your head for a long time." Then he walked away, slow, quiet, thoughtful. But in his heart, the story he planned to tell was not just a tale. It was a trap. That night, as moonlight spread like silver paint across the forest floor, Tortoise did not sleep. He sat under his favorite iroko tree, chewing slowly on bitter cola, thinking deeply. The crickets chirped, the owls hooted, but Tortoise only heard one sound, the voice of Elephant echoing in his mind. "You better make it sweet." He clenched his jaws. Tortoise was tired of being seen as a joke, tired of being the last to arrive, the last to eat, the last to be heard. This feast, this gathering, was his chance to shine. But a story alone would not be enough. Not unless it was a story with power, a story that changed everything. And so, Tortoise made a plan. First, he crawled quietly to the riverbank. The moon was high and the water shimmered like glass. He waited behind a tree until he heard footsteps, heavy, slow, soft. Elephant! The Great One had come to drink. Tortoise stepped out from the shadows and cleared his throat. "Brother Elephant," he said sweetly, "may I speak with you?" "Now? It's late." "Yes, because I have something to offer you." The Big One lowered his head. "Speak." Tortoise smiled gently. "You are strong, you are kind, but the feast, it is a place for cleverness too. What if I help you shine even brighter?" Elephant looked amused. "And what do you mean?" Tortoise leaned closer. "When you give your gift, I will tell a story, not about anyone else, but about you. A tale of how wise and powerful you are. I'll make the animals clap and dance in your name. Just imagine it." Elephant's ears flapped. He scratched the ground with one huge foot. "Why would you do that?" Tortoise shrugged, acting humble. "Because you are the only one who has ever spoken to me kindly. The others laugh. They call me small, slow, useless." Elephant's eyes softened. "All right," he said, "but tell it well." Tortoise bowed low. "Oh, I will, my brother. They will never forget it." But as Elephant turned back to the river, Tortoise's eyes darkened. "Yes," he whispered, "they will never forget." He wasn't going to tell a good story about Elephant. He was going to tell one that would shake the forest. The day of the Feast of Peace finally came. The forest glowed. Sunlight poured through the trees, lighting every leaf like green fire. Birds circled above. Children of all animals danced, painted in earth and ash. The smell of roasted yam, palm soup, and ripe pawpaw floated on the breeze. Under the baobab tree, the circle was drawn, a wide space where the animals sat according to clan. Monkey clan in the trees, snake clan curled in the grass. The big ones, rhino, hippo, buffalo, near the water's edge. Elephant stood tall and proud in the center. But it was Tortoise who stepped into the ring with the eyes of a hunter and the smile of a friend. He looked around slowly. "My elders," he said, "and all creatures of the forest, I bring a tale, not one I heard, but one I saw." There was silence. "This is the tale of the elephant who thought the forest belonged to him." Elephant lifted his trunk slightly. A few animals glanced at him, puzzled. Tortoise continued. "He was strong, yes. His footsteps shook the trees. His voice could silence lions. But in his pride, he forgot something. He forgot that even a leaf, though small, can cover a lion's eye." The crowd murmured. Monkey giggled. Parrot whispered into Hyena's ear. Tortoise walked slowly in a circle, weaving the tale with his tongue like a weaver bird with straw. "This elephant," he said, "once drank from a river and said, 'This is mine.' He stood on a hill and roared, 'All this I own.' And when the smaller animals trembled, he smiled, not in kindness, but in power." Elephant blinked slowly, his trunk lowered. Tortoise's voice rose. But one day, a tortoise stepped out and said, "Brother, strength is not everything. A forest lives on kindness." And the elephant laughed. The animals were still. The wind seemed to pause. So the tortoise taught him a lesson, not with fighting, not with biting, but with wisdom. He led the elephant into a trap of his own pride, where he was stuck for days, until he begged for help. Laughter broke out, loud, scattered, growing. Elephant took one step back. "Since that day," Tortoise said, bowing dramatically, "the forest remembered, even the smallest shell can carry the biggest lesson." The applause was thunder. Parrots screamed with delight. Monkeys slapped the ground. Even Lion gave a small smile. But Elephant did not smile. He turned and walked away slowly, his ears hanging low, his pride torn. And Tortoise? He bowed again, eyes shining. He had told his tale and turned truth into power. The applause had died down. The drums were still. The smell of roasted maize hung heavy, but no one tasted it. Elephant had vanished into the trees. Some said they saw his large shape moving toward the hills, alone. Others claimed they heard him trumpeting softly by the river, not with anger, but with pain. One thing was clear. The story had cut deep. Back under the baobab tree, Tortoise was surrounded. Parrot flapped beside him. "That was the best story I've heard all year." Monkey clapped. "You finished the elephant with only words." Even the wise old owl came forward. She said, tilting her head. "Your tongue is sharper than the leopard's claw." Tortoise only smiled. "I only told the truth," he said with fake humility. "A story is a mirror. It shows us what we don't want to see." But not everyone was pleased. Python hissed quietly to Crocodile. "That tail, it was too pointed." Crocodile blinked. He didn't name anyone. "But we all knew," Python said. Even Elephant knew. And in the shadows, Hyena chuckled. "This will not end here," he whispered. "Pride wounded is pride that bites." The next morning, the forest was quiet. No birdsong, no chatter. The trees held their breath. Then, from the western path, came a sound. Thum, 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 like distant thunder. The ground trembled, leaves shook. Elephant was coming back. When he appeared, he didn't look the same. His tusks were polished, his ears wide. He walked slowly, but with purpose. The animals stepped aside as he passed, uncertain. His eyes were calm, too calm. He walked straight to the iroko tree where Tortoise lay sleeping in his usual shell-shaped hammock of woven roots. "Brother Tortoise!" The voice was deep, heavy. Tortoise opened one eye, stretched slowly. "Ah, my mighty friend, you've returned. Did the winds cool your temper?" Elephant stared at him. "I have a tale of my own to tell, and it begins today." Tortoise chuckled. "Ah, a story from you? I hope it is shorter than your shadow." Elephant didn't smile. "Come to the river's bend at sunset. Bring no one. You and I will speak like brothers." Tortoise blinked. Something in Elephant's voice was different. Calm, but with a weight behind it. Still, he nodded. "I will come," he said, but inside, something stirred. A warning. Not fear, yet, but the kind of feeling you get when the birds fly away before the storm begins. Sunset spilled gold across the treetops. The river shimmered like melted bronze, quiet except for the gentle lapping against the rocks. Tortoise arrived just as the last bird flew home. He walked carefully, shell glinting in the fading light, eyes watching every shadow. The river's bend was a lonely place, wide, empty, no trees close, only tall grass swaying and the slow-moving river curving like a snake. You could see someone coming from far off, and yet feel like you were still being watched. And Elephant stood there, alone. His large body cast a long shadow, his tusks gleamed, his ears barely moved in the wind. Tortoise approached slowly. "You called me, my friend," he said, settling near a smooth stone. "I have come." Elephant didn't look at him. "This river," he said, "has been here longer than either of us. It has seen many things." Tortoise said nothing. "Do you know what else the river knows?" Elephant asked, finally turning his head. His eyes, dark and heavy, rested on Tortoise. "It remembers." Tortoise swallowed quietly. His smile stayed on his face, but his fingers tapped the ground softly, once, twice. He was alert now, listening with his whole body. "I told a story," Tortoise said, voice calm. "You tell one now. We are even." "No," Elephant said. "You made me a lesson, a laugh. You turned all eyes against me." Tortoise didn't flinch. "Was it not truth?" "Truth can be poison if served with pride," Elephant said. "You made me weak in front of them. A leader cannot be mocked." The wind picked up. The river whispered between them. "So what will you do?" Tortoise asked. Elephant stepped closer. His shadow swallowed the tortoise. "I will tell a better story," he said, "one that shows the forest what happens when the clever forget humility." Tortoise stood slowly. "And what is that story called, Elephant?" "The Fall of the Shell." A long silence followed. Then Tortoise spoke. His voice had changed, no longer playful, but sharp. "Be careful, Elephant. Stories don't always end the way the teller wants. Sometimes they turn on their own legs and walk a different road." Elephant smiled the first time. It was not a kind smile. "Then we will see whose road is longer." And with that, he turned and walked into the night, footsteps fading like thunder into the dark. Tortoise stood alone by the river. He stared into the water, seeing not his reflection, but the shape of a coming storm. For days after their river meeting, the forest was restless. No one saw Elephant. No one heard Tortoise speak of it, but something unspoken drifted between the trees like smoke after a fire. Tortoise returned to his quiet spot beneath the iroko tree, pretending all was well. He still told stories, yes, but his laughter was lighter now, like feathers pretending to be stone. He watched the forest more than before, watched the movements, watched the silence. He knew what was coming. He didn't know when. Then one morning, Owl came with news. Elephant has invited all to a new gathering, she said. He says he wants to share a tale of humility and truth. Tortoise did not blink. Ah, he said, the story begins. He prepared himself carefully. He polished his shell, not to shine, but to protect. He sharpened his wit, not to entertain, but to defend. And when he walked into the forest clearing that evening, all eyes were already waiting. The animals had gathered again, the same circle, the same tree, the same firelight dancing on faces, but the air was heavier now, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Elephant stood in the center, majestic, calm, smiling. "Friends," he began, "once I was made into a story. Today I return with my own." The animals leaned in. Parrot ruffled his feathers. Hyena grinned with all his teeth. "There was a tortoise," Elephant began, "who believed cleverness was greater than strength, who believed that with words alone he could rule the forest." Tortoise remained still, his face unreadable. "This tortoise," Elephant continued, "mocked the strong and twisted truth for laughter. He was praised, but only because the forest forgot what truth costs." He paused. The crowd was silent. "But truth is not just cleverness," he said. "It is responsibility. It is humility." Then he turned, suddenly, dramatically, toward Tortoise. "Come forward, brother." Tortoise stood, slowly. He walked to the center with the careful steps of someone who knows the ground may not be what it seems. Elephant smiled. "You taught us something. Now teach us again. Say, 'I was wrong.' Let us see that even the clever can bow." Tortoise looked up at the towering elephant. The firelight flickered in his eyes. "Why should I say what is not true?" he asked. "Because stories, like people, must kneel to harmony. Say it, and all ends here." The forest waited. Even the crickets fell silent. Tortoise looked around, at the faces, at the leaves, at the stars beyond the trees. Then he spoke, not loudly, but clearly. "I will not lie to protect pride. My story was true, and if that truth wounded, it is not the tongue that should be blamed, but the wound itself." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elephant's eyes darkened. So be it. He raised one foot. The air thickened. Some animals gasped. "You threaten violence now?" Tortoise asked, still calm. "In front of the same forest that once applauded my tale?" "No," said Elephant. "I offer an ending, a lesson. Let them remember that words, like tusks, can pierce." Then, a crack. A sudden sound, but not from Elephant, from the ground. Beneath him, the clearing shifted. The grass gave way. The earth crumbled. And with a roar, Elephant's heavy form sank into a pit, deep and hidden, lined with vines, disguised with leaves. The animals screamed. Some ran, some froze. Only Tortoise stepped forward. He looked down into the pit, where Elephant groaned in shock, trapped, unhurt but stunned. "You wanted a lesson. Here it is. Never forget that the earth remembers those who walk too proud." And he turned and left, as the animals slowly gathered behind him, silent, thinking, changed. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet.
The forest had no songs, no laughter, no storytelling under the trees. Birds chirped only when they had to. Even hyenas' cackling had vanished, replaced by long silences and thoughtful stares. Something had shifted deep in the belly of the land, and every creature could feel it. Elephant was eventually helped from the pit, not by Tortoise, no, but by leopard and antelope, who worked for hours digging, pulling, dragging. He had no wounds on his body, only bruises on his pride, and that, everyone knew, was far worse. He said nothing for a long while. When he finally did, it was only this: "The forest has spoken." Then he went back to his part of the land where the grass grew tallest and the river bent like a sleeping snake. Tortoise also spoke little, but he walked through the forest with his head high and his pace slow, not in arrogance, but in peace. He knew what he had done. He knew what it had cost. And most of all, he knew what he had proven. Words could be dangerous, but silence was deadly. One morning, Monkey found Tortoise at the riverbank, watching the current as if listening for answers. "Why did you not finish him?" Monkey asked. "You had the chance." Tortoise smiled. "Because stories must teach, not destroy. If I had crushed him, what would the forest learn? That pride should be punished with pain? No, that's not our way." "Then what is our way?" Monkey asked, frowning. "That the small may be wise," Tortoise said. "That the strong may be wrong. And that truth, true truth, is louder than any roar." Monkey nodded, though he did not fully understand. But deep down, he felt something settle in his chest like a calm wind. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the sky into fire and gold, the animals gathered once again. Not for a fight, not for a trick, but for a tale. This time, it was Zebra who spoke, a short tale. Then Squirrel shared another. Then Lion, surprisingly, told one too. And finally, all eyes turned to Tortoise. He stood slowly. "Today," he said, "I will tell no story." Gasps fluttered through the clearing. "Instead," he continued, "I will listen. Because even the greatest storyteller must first be a great listener." And that, they say, is how Tortoise became not just the trickster, not just the clever one, but the true elder of the forest.